All right, we're going to go ahead and do the Chapter 12 warm-up. Remember, you will not be given a list of the types of sampling methods or the types of bias. That's something that you have to know and be able to come up with on your own. All right, so this is a similar situation to that number 3 in the homework, where we've got the PTA is doing a poll, elementary students seeing if they can go on to the next grade level, but they have to make sure they pass that particular test. So, 2 things you had to do: name the method and then name the type of bias. So the first thing is similar to the first one we had on the homework. They this time they run a poll. They run a poll on the local TV news asking people to actively dial in. So that naturally, of course, is your voluntary response sampling, because people are having to take action to place themselves as a member of the a subject of the sample. And then always that goes from that is of easily voluntary response bias, because only those who feel strongly about the test issue. Make sure you put context in there, not just about the issue. So make sure that when you explain, always put it reference to the context, not just a definition. Now, I could have also accepted the undercoverage, because remember, not all people watch TV. I don't watch very much TV, and I rarely watch the local news. So that's going to be limiting on the people that you're going to be reaching. All right, the next one. This one has some confusing parts to it, and so I hope I can explain and justify those things for you. Hold a PTA meeting at every single one of those 20 elementary schools. I like that. Tally the opinions. I like that you're going to the elementary schools. The problem that I have, it says tally the opinions expressed by those who attend the meeting. So, 2 things here. If people did not know that the topic of the meeting was going to be this issue, if they did not know that, so they did not show up with the intent of expressing their opinion on the testing situation, then that's just considered a convenience sample. Okay, you're just conveniently taking parents who show up, and it wasn't like they purposefully put themselves into that topic. That, of course, then is undercoverage, because do you think all types of parents are able to attend those meetings? A lot of times those are the super duper caring ones, the ones that have the time and the ability. They're not too busy, they're not working, that kind of stuff. So you're systematically not getting all types of parents if you just get some of the ones that go to the PTA meeting. Now, if you thought that if it was a situation where, and I wrote this over here on this side over here, if they had announced to the public or to the elementary students, hey, we're going to be having a meeting at your school to talk about the topic of passing on to the next grade level based on a test. Okay, if they had announced that, then you would be saying the voluntary response sampling, because people would be coming and taking action. If people would known about that topic, they would have taken action and placed themselves into the sample because of that issue. That would have then been the voluntary response sampling, and of course the voluntary response bias. All right, this next one. Randomly select one class at each elementary school. Okay, that in itself is stratify, because it's one of you and one of you and one of all of you. So we stratified by elementary school. But this will not show up on the quiz. I will not put a multi-stage one on the quiz, but this is an example of multi-stage, because when they have the strata and they take every single one of the strata, instead of just picking some of that strata, they pick all of those parents in each one of those classes. So the strata that they took, they then clustered it so that they could get all of it. I guess they intended that one of the classes in the elementary school would be representative of that entire elementary school. All right, so I actually kind of like this now. I think it's pretty good. However, what happens if the particular class that they tried to get to take all of them, again, remember, once they cluster it, they're intending that to be a little miniature population of the entire elementary school. And so I kind of have an issue with that, because do you think kindergartners' parents are going to have the same feeling and strength of feeling about this issue as fifth graders' parents? So I think that could be an issue. Now, if that's the issue, what would that be? Because I don't even have that written here. If we think that the class that they select is not representative of the whole entire elementary school that it's representing, that, of course, would be under coverage. And, of course, you would explain that saying, because the one class chosen might not represent the whole elementary school's opinion. All right. And now, some of you might have honed in on this little tidbit where they said they contact each one of those parents. Well, contacting those parents, let's see, is that what it said? They contact each of those parents. So maybe there's some issue there. And of course, anytime you try to get all of something, remember with census, anytime you trying to get all, non-response bias is a potential issue. I really think that's further on down the list of biases happening with this particular problem. All right, last one. Go through the district's enrollment. Okay, so we're talking the entire district's enrollment, and select every 40th parent. And then they will go to the homes and interview them. Ding, 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 ding. That should also be a flag right there. Now, first of all, I'm loving this select every 40th parents. I'm like, ba-bam. I know that is systematic. Check that off. Got that one. It is good. However, I have a concern about going through the entire district's enrollment. Is it possible that every 40th parent is not an elementary school parent? Maybe every 40th one, just because of randomness and the list, happens to be, a secondary parent. So that's a potential issue. If that happens, then that could be under coverage. If you sample the entire district and every 40th parent, you do not get enough to be the elementary school ones. All right. So systematic sampling, we know for sure. Now, I would, because they specifically mention interviewing to the people chosen, ding, 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 that's kind of something that, they're taking the time to talk about interviewing, and we know that you have to be careful with interviews because of response bias due to the question wording, lack of privacy, ignorance, and appearance. So you don't have to write all four of those, but you need to say response bias due to, and then pick one of those. Probably lack of privacy could be the most pertinent one. All right. And then, of course, follow up to stave off non-response bias. But again, these non-response bias ones, they're kind of secondary. Okay, so there are your options of answers and thoughts on Chapter 12 warm-up for the quiz tomorrow.